So now we're going to look at making our slip pockets. So you have your two slip pocket panels, and we're going to lay them right sides together, matching up the outside edges. Now if you want to clip them, you can. I generally don't because I'm lazy. If you wanted to make your slip pocket bigger or deeper, then please feel free to do so. Obviously you have to remember, if you make it a lot deeper, then it will go into the curve at the bottom of the bag, so you don't want to make it too much deeper. So we're going to leave a gap of about 3 inches at the bottom. I don't mark this, I just kind of eyeball it, and we're going to stitch around the outside edge of our pocket. I'm just doing a back stitch to secure my stitching at the beginning. The seam allowances are all in the pattern, so you need to read the pattern as well as watching the videos. And I usually give people everything in the videos, but people then tend to not read the pattern, and I think it's a good idea to read the pattern. So I'm not going to give you every detail in the videos. I'll show you, but I'm not going to tell you everything, so you can actually read the pattern too, because it's good to do both. Videos work in conjunction with a pattern in my book, so I'm going all the way back down to that bottom edge, and then I'm just going to come in and back stitch a couple of stitches there. Grab my scissors, which are behind me. I'm going to get rid of the threads. So I've now stitched all the way along the bottom, up, from sort of about 3 inches in, I guess, 2 inches in, along, up, across, down, and then back. So I've left a gap. You can see the gap there at the bottom. And I'm going to trim off my corners at 45 degrees or thereabouts. You don't need a compass or protractor to do this. You can kind of eyeball it. And then I like to take off a little bit more, just either side. It just helps the top and the corners sit nicely. Just be careful you don't cut into your stitching, because that's not going to end well. Then I'm going to take my pocket and I'm going to turn it right side out, using that hole that we left as my sort of turning gap. And this is some different woven fusible interfacing. It's really stiff, but I actually quite like it. So it's a heavier weight than the G700 that I would normally use, or the SF101. But it's nice because it just gives a really nice firm feel. So I'm just going to use a pokey tool to poke out the corners. A pokey tool is not sufficient for the job. Let me find a different pokey tool. Oh, I've got all sorts of tools here, but not a pokey tool that will work. Grab something from behind me. That pokey tool will work. To poke out the corners so that they sit nicely and squarely. And because this is a slightly thicker interfacing, it takes a bit more work to get them to sit nice and square. Once we've got that all sitting square, and that top seam, just need to roll it so that we know that the stitching is right on the edge. Even though this is inside of your bag, you want your slip pocket to be nice and square. They look awful if they've got sort of curved edges to them. And if you don't push out those seams so that the seams sit right on the side of your pocket, they kind of have a slightly curved look, which is a little bit weird. Just press those seams and press your pocket. This bit where your opening is, you can just, if you give it a little tug either side, it should just turn in on its own. It doesn't do it so much with this wing interfacing because it is a little bit thicker. But I'm waiting for my delivery of G700, which hasn't come yet, so I'm using some stuff I had in the cupboard, which is a little bit older, I'm going to say, a little bit thicker. It's good, but it's thicker. So now we have a beautifully rectangular slip pocket. Let's get rid of the pressing mat. And all I'm going to do is top stitch along the top edge. And I will admit that I usually do a couple of lines of top stitching along the top edge. It's a personal preference thing, and I'm top stitching at 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to do a second line, 1/8 of an inch below. That's not mandatory, it's just something I like to do. Trim off any stray threads. And there we go, that's the top of your slip pocket looking really nice. So I'm now going to take one of my lining panels, which I'm just going to give a little press because it's been sat over the other side and it looks like it's got a bit creased up. So I'm just going to give it a run over with the iron. Let's just do it on the back because this interfacing is quite thick. It is woven, but it's a heavier weight. That's better. Now I'm going to just fold this in half to find the centre mark. So I'm just going to press it, and that gives me a nice centre mark. I'm going to do the same with my pocket to find the centre. So I'm folding it in half, just to find where the centre is. And you can see that the fold sits there quite nicely. And the pattern tells you to make a mark 2.5 inches from the top. I'm not making a mark, I'm just going to lay my ruler, and then I'm going to pop my slip pocket so that it touches the bottom of my ruler. So now it's central because the fold that I've made on my pocket is sitting on the fold that I've made on my lining fabric. And now I'm going to stitch down the side, along the bottom and up the other side to secure my pocket in place. And again, I'm using 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. You can use a bigger seam allowance if you like, but then I find that the corners or the sides of the pockets tend to flap away from the lining, and I don't like that. It also, of course, reduces the size of your pocket. This isn't a massive pocket, it's just big enough to pop your keys and your phone in. If you have great big pockets, you tend to overstack them with things. And then they tear. And there's nothing more annoying than when you've spent ages making a bag and then you spoil the inside of it by tearing your slip pocket. As you come along the bottom here, that will close up that turning gap that you had. And then back up the other side. And I like to just do a small triangle in the top corners on both sides, which just show you in a second. I'll do the same on this side, just an extra few stitches. Threads. Now I'm not sure if you can actually see that, but there's a line of stitching that just goes from here down to here, and that relieves the stress on the corner of your pocket. The corners of your pockets where your stitching stops are stress points, so when you fill your bag up with loads and loads of stuff and, you know, things, we all do it, putting loads of bits and pieces in, and it's heavy. This is the area that will tear. This is the area that will pull away from your lining fabric. That extra little piece of stitching, that little triangle, means that it's less likely to do so. It spreads the stress across that corner. If you look at the pocket on your jeans, you'll see that that's how your jeans pockets are done. They've got that extra little line of stitching. So our slip pocket is now fully secure. And I'll come back in a second and show you how to do the zipper pocket.